Call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move to approve the consent agenda and the agenda. Any discussion? On.
I got one question on there. I just want to clarify on the bus bid, the acceptance of the bid, is that's for all the ones that we need, right?
Yeah, that's all the ones we had put out for bid before. We've done that twice now. So we went with the 2017 instead of the 16th to get another year off of our numbers. So that's one Jim wanted to take from Midwest Bus Sales.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify and make sure that was, I thought that was the whole package.
Yep.
So we're good there.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Hearing from the audience. Ms. Workman.
Hello, thank you for the chance to speak with you again today. I just would like to ask a couple of questions about the new test and stay and learn policy as it relates to the kids at school. I want to know, or I'm hoping you might address, if the board decides to keep that option, that partnership with the KDHE, how will it ensure that children who are unvaccinated are not discriminated against, since that policy offers quarantine-related privileges to students who are vaccinated? And with the evidence of the current vaccines falling well below the 50% effectiveness rating, it doesn't seem to be rooted in science that those who are vaccinated actually are truly less capable of transmitting the virus. And also what protections the policy will afford to parents with regard to contact tracing and sharing private information and contact information with the public health department. Thank you.
On to EJI presentation.
York, you're up.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Dave York. I'm the pastor at First United Methodist Church in Leavenworth. And about a year ago, I was invited by the United Methodist churches here in Kansas and Nebraska into a project called the Equal Justice Initiative. The Equal Justice Initiative was started by a man named Brian Stevenson. If you've ever seen the movie Just Mercy, read that book. I know it's used in one of the English curriculums in the school. Their goal is to mark sites of lynchings across the United States. And being a native Kansan, my hometown's about 90 minutes from here. I had no idea that there had been lynchings in Kansas. We just didn't learn those kind of things when I was a kid in school. And so as we found out, there were 3 here in Leavenworth County. One victim was a man named Richard Wood. Another guy was named Silas Wilson, and Fred Alexander was in January of 1901. So about a year ago, I was invited to kind of head up this initiative and to form a coalition of community members. And next slide, please. We'll go through the community members. To form a group that would consist of people in the community, church leaders, community leaders, and so on. Some of them are here. William Wallace is here. He'll be presenting the story of Fred Alexander. Joanna Scholes is here. Tony Majors is here as part of our coalition. And we've been working over the last year to put together community leaders so that we can complete the initiative that they call the Community Remembrance Project. That's the title of it, and it has components to it. Next slide, please. There are 4 parts of the Remembrance Project. One's a historical marker. It tells the story of our county on one side of it, and then it tells the story of lynching in America on the other side of it. There's a soil collection project that comes with trying to collect soil, and what we would do, to use religious language, that's kind of my vocabulary, is consecrate that soil. So we know where the lynchings of Mr. Wilson and Mr. Alexander were. They were right in Leavenworth. Fred Alexander was lynched. He was burned at the stake right near the bowling alley. If you know where the big green dinosaur is, that's approximately where he was murdered at. And so part of the soil collection project is to collect the soil. We'll keep one of them at the Richard Allen Cultural Center and Museum. And one will be sent to Montgomery, which is the headquarters for the Equal Justice Initiative. And one will be sent to the African American Museum in Wichita. So it's a kind of a remembrance. Where it comes in for the school districts are 3 and 4. 11th and 12th graders are being invited into an essay contest, which this is done in every county in America that has an Equal Justice Initiative does an essay contest. And what it is, it's an educational piece that allows students to be educated on their local history, the history of their country, and how it fits together with what's going on currently in our world and into the future as well. So there's a component of, if we're teaching our kids what happened in the past so they can apply it now and live into it into the future to become a more just, a more good society, we believe that has great merit to it. They put up a $5,000 in scholarship money. So it's a voluntary kind of essay contest with prize money. I don't think it's any addition to the curriculum at all. I would see teachers in a role of probably maybe some proofreading and advising on, you might want to go this way, or maybe help with a little research, but I think you probably do that with a lot of essay contests, 11th and 12th grade. And then an ongoing piece of that is courageous conversations. That this might be a threshold where we can have more discussions and events throughout our community, into the schools as we cooperate, partner with schools on dialogue of race and poverty and justice and all those kinds of issues that come up in our current climate, have in our past, and I'm sure will in our future, so that we build those in to have ongoing conversations on ongoing learning about who we've been, who we are, and who we hope to become. So this is the components of the Remembrance Project. I think when it came to my great understanding and great learning has been hearing stories from members of the coalition, learning our own stories. I had never heard of Fred Alexander until I moved to Leavenworth. And I heard his story and I was just stunned by it. I was stunned that thousands of people came out to his lynching. It wasn't just a few people out in the rural county. It was like the main event in the town, which is really kind of scary and stunning in a way to know that story. But I wanted to invite William to come tonight and present the story of Fred Alexander. William he's one of the curators of the museum, the Richard Allen Cultural Center, and he tells the story much better than I can. So William, I'll turn it over to you.
We'll be very brief. I'm not going to tell you, I'm going into a lot of details. Fred Alexander was arrested originally for the assault on another lady by the name of Eva Ruth. He was consequently charged with the death of a previous unsolved murder of Pearl Forbes, F-O-R-B-E-S. She was killed, her body was found November the 7th, 1990. He was arrested in January 1991. He was charged with assault and murder of this lady with no evidence whatsoever. There was a mob. He was held at the county jail and then taken to the county state penitentiary for security reasons. As he was being brought up from the state penitentiary back to the county jail, they said there was a mob. Depending on what you read, it's from 1,000 to 5,000 to 8,000 different people that went to the county jail and took him out of the jail. Now, the story said either the father, Mr. William Ford, said she wants him killed and burned at the stake where they found his daughter's body. And that was at the railroad tracks at Lawrence Avenue and Spruce Street. It used to be a Santa Fe railroad track in that area. First, I want to describe to you also, a lynching does not necessarily have to be a hanging. The definition of a lynching is when a mob kills someone for alleged offense with or without a legal trial. So they said, what do you want to do with him? I want him burned at the stake. So they tied him to a makeshift stake made out of railroad ties and burned him at the stake, simply for the fact that he was accused of a murder that he was never really convicted of. This is where he would take hell at the Kansas State Penitentiary back to the Leavenworth County Jail onto the area at Lawrence Avenue and Spruce. And if you lived in Lansing, Leavenworth more than a year, you know what the old green dinosaur is. So he was killed in the area where the green dinosaur is. If you're looking for more information on it, you can Google the lynching of Fred Alexander, and it will give you a lot of more details. I'm totally agree, so that's the story.
One of the things about becoming I think a better society, which is what we're in. You're in the education business, you're in the business of becoming a better society for today and down the road. I think part of it is knowing your story, owning who you are, owning the dark, shadowy sides of your life and of your own culture, of being honest with yourself and telling stories and understanding and hearing different perspectives on people's lives and events and how we interpret the events. Dan, next slide, please. I'll go ahead and have you forward it. The Equal Justice Initiative is throughout the United States. And one of the shocking things about the Fred Alexander story was it was a nationwide story. We have at the Richard Allen Center newspaper from California to New York. It was in the New York Times. And this is in 1901, right? So the reason it was such a big story was because this happened in Kansas. This didn't happen in the Deep South. This wasn't antebellum Civil War, Southern States Confederacy. This was in Kansas, a free state, an abolitionist state, the home of John Brown. And that could happen here was really shocking to the nation. And like a lot of stories that are shocking and difficult stories, there's always a desire to want to just not talk about it. You know, it's just move on. We don't talk about those things, but you know, when you don't talk about things, nothing gets better. It just kind of gets pushed down in there, and you're only as sick as your secrets. That's what I was told. And this isn't a secret, but it's just a story that hasn't really been told very much. So what we're hoping for is this. I said there were components to it. You can see what one of the historical markers looks like. We're hoping to do that in the next year or so, that we would write the text for the lynchings that happened here and have a memorial for that. The essay contest you can see there in the center. The essays are actually not graded by us. They're sent to the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, and they're the ones who, you know, read them and decide who gets what. We're just the facilitators for it. We kind of coordinate the efforts. And then the soil collection you can see there. Next slide, please. The picture of Fred Alexander that's kind of being passed around and all of that. I think it's very important to put faces to stories. These are real people, you know, these are real people who had lives that have maybe been forgotten over the years and over the decades. So part of what we do is we tell stories so that the stories come back alive, because the issues are still remaining in our society today. Next slide. So the essay contest itself will begin soon. In consultation with the Leavenworth School District and with here, we thought this time frame would work really well, kind of a spring semester time frame. So it'll start after Dr. King Day on Tuesday the 18th and end before spring break. It kind of aligns with scholarship writing and applications for schools and things like that. 11th and 12th graders in the school districts. The winners, and they're usually around 4 to 5 winners. Can't say exactly how many there will be, but 4 to 5 winners will be announced, and then we'll invite them to read their essays as part of the Juneteenth celebration, which will be in June. The first place essay will be read as part of the ceremony, and the scholarship money is good money, and it's provided for by the Equal Justice Initiative. So I want to invite you to just do more of your own homework on it. Go to their website. The next slide, please. The website is the Equal Justice Initiative website. That's a picture of the museum that's there in Montgomery. And you can look to see what kind of educational materials they have, what they have as far as their museum. We just had a group of our youth from the church go down there over the Christmas break. And it only cost $5 to get in. And the guy who was there with us said they are greatly undervaluing the price of admission. He said you could spend hours in there. They only got to spend 3 hours in there. They just said, we're just getting started. It's one of those kinds of museums. So we're hopeful that this is going to be a project that really captures the imagination of students. We're hoping it won't be too big a burden on teachers. You've already got plenty to do. You've got more than enough work to do. But this is important work. And so the students who want to tap into it and want to get involved with it, we hope that they will take advantage of it and that we can help move society along this way, especially in our corner of the world. So thank you for hearing our invitation, and questions or anything, I'd be glad to answer questions if you have any.
Sir, thank you very much for coming out tonight, providing us that information. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick note, that'll be the essay contest will be offered to students. It won't be required of anyone, but it is offered to all of our students. We'll be sending that out after the board.
Yeah, and if the essay is incentivized a little bit, there's got to be more than just prize money involved in it. I think that might help motivate them, but I'll let your conscience be your guide on that one. All good.
Good. Eddie.
Item 41, district financial information. Take it away, Dan, down here.
We posted our district financial information that we do every month. Our year-end cash balances are still right about 1.6 million. Remember, our goals were 3 million coming up. This is about 400,000 more than we had ended last year, so we feel good about that. Just a good note to continue to watch that number as we have incoming and outgoing outlays. But then we also have the building budgets that Danielle has provided for us. Remember, this is a number. This was an initiative of the Board of Education that we would provide that information, push that information down closer to those making that decision. The main thing that they have access to are those is the funds that the activity funds, the classroom type of activities that they spend money on. We also have money at the district office, but this is budgetary information that the buildings all have access to. So if you have any questions about the numbers themselves, like I said, we get those from Danielle, and then the 21-22 expenses as we continue out of our buildings. We can answer any of those questions. And if there's something that we want more information about, you can send that to me too. And we can provide whatever we need to do, as Danielle said the other day. So.
I think we're having a workshop.
If we approve it, yes, we'll have a workshop in a couple of months that we can talk about all of that information and how we get to all that too. So.
Motion to approve district financial information.
I'll make the motion and I'll second it.
Second, okay. Discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Just what we presented, so that way it'll roll out. Okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Department reports. Has everybody had a chance to read the department reports? Move to approve department reports.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Anybody have questions for any of the departments?
On the custodial report, I just wanted to put thanks to them for all of the extra work that I know they put forth to make up for deficits with the maintenance, not having a supervisor there right now. And I wanted to kind of check, I didn't see of course, there's not a report for maintenance right now, but with that, or do we have that position advertised right now?
Yes, we posted it this week.
Okay, and how long will that be advertised for? Is that?
We have it closing on Friday and we'll interview next week.
Okay, where all does that get advertised at then?
It gets advertised on our, there's a link on our website that takes you to Skyward where everybody applies. We also advertise on Indeed. And some positions, it's called the key, that's through the state of Kansas, that would be more educational kind of positions, but we do Indeed and we do our website. There's a lot of word of mouth, mostly we track where it comes from, where a lot of the applicants come from, and then usually it's the website.
Is that something we could put on the USD page too, to get that out to more, or are all of our employees aware of that already, and families, members in the district, things like that? Just to get that advertised more?
I mean, for like a notice of
Mhm.
openings, yeah, we can send that out. Yeah.
Okay,
We are planning on sending one out about our recruitment bonuses. So we
Okay.
could provide a link right there with that too,
okay,
about openings that are available.
okay.
Good idea.
Is a week going to give us enough time to get qualified candidates? Do you think a week will be enough?
We opened it last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday or Wednesday. I think we have 3 applicants for the supervisor position, and we have, I think, 4 for just a general maintenance position.
Is that a normal time frame then for those jobs
A
to
couple
be
weeks,
open?
about pretty normal. The principal's jobs that we have open, we keep open for about a month.
Mhm. Can we keep it open maybe for an extra week to ensure, or you said we have 2 or 3 applicants?
3 and 4. She said 3 for the supervisor, she thought, and 4 for the general maintenance position. If we push it out on our website, you might get more in the coming week.
My suggestion would be maybe to give it an extra week on the site, but that would be, I don't know if we need to vote on that or what your thoughts are on that.
We can keep it open another week, and we can also fill it if we don't get applicants that we feel are qualified, we don't have to fill out those either. That's
Okay.
always an option.
All right,
This is the reason we made it 2 weeks is because we're trying to fill it as quickly as
Quickly.
possible so we can get people to work. And
Yeah.
start taking care of business.
Yeah, we have 3 for the supervisor, and I just heard of 1 more that's not applied.
okay, that's good.
Further discussion on department reports?
I just had one. For the transportation, Jim had in his report about approving the sale of the bus barn. There isn't currently any plan in place to try to
No.
upgrade, right? I know we've talked about it, but there's no plan in place right now. Okay.
Those are internal discussions that we've talked about options for that. When we start talking about a long range plan that we're going to talk about on our ward work sessions, I think that's all of those type of things would be things that come up, including
Okay.
our full board office. It's over behind Citizens National Bank. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. That was worded in his report. I just want to make sure since we're just coming on.
Yep.
We all realize that these reports are not easy, and we're very appreciative of them. These reports were probably generated even before they came back to school. So again, thank you all for such great work in the reports and giving us the information we need so that we can make vital decisions. Thank you.
Motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Okay. Moving on to department reports. This one, administrative reports. Move to approve administration reports. Second. Discussion. There's no discussion. I vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item 7.1, resolution to establish election of school board officers.
Two of the things that we get to do here at the January meeting is to either elect new school board officers at this time or We can choose to do it at another meeting time. A year and a half ago, I believe it was, we decided that we would do that in July. And so that's when we switched that in July. Mr. Dalby was our first president, and then Mr. Yoakum was our second. So if we hold with that, we are presenting the following resolution to adopt to change our board president and vice president at our July meeting. For those of you that are new, the reason that we chose to do that in July is that the functions of school, that's our calendar year in school is July to June. So that's why we chose to do that. So we present this resolution that we would continue to do that. It is also a part of our Board of Education lifestyle.
I make a motion, recommendation that we, that this is a new school board.
I make a recommendation or a motion that since this is a new school board coming forward, that we go ahead and choose to elect a new president and vice president of the school board.
So Mary, you're putting forth the motion to resolve to do this at the first meeting on or after Monday in January. So we would mark this first, correct? Okay.
Yes.
I second. You need a second, right?
So we're doing elections, there would be an election tonight.
If we vote that way,
we vote
yes.
that way.
Yes. You have a motion to second discussion? All in favor of
Yeah,
keeping
discussion.
I'm sorry.
How long have current board members been in these positions?
July?
Just July of
We started-
2021.
Originally, we had done it in January. Mr. Dolby and the school board, they had changed it to July to start with the cycles of school, because our fiscal calendar for the school year is July to June. And so in July, we had elections or we had officer appointments, whatever, however you want to call it. And then now we start, it's our January meeting, our first meeting, so we haven't adopted that as a full change yet. This would be to either accept it as a July nomination, and that's how we would go, our cycle would start in July, or to stay with the January election and where we would approve it now, stay with the January election, and then right after this, we would elect new officers for the school board. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, it does, and that's what I am recommending.
I was just explaining it for the discussion.
Thank you.
All in favor of nominating and January meetings for nomination of presidents and our officers? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-2.
You're opposed.
2.
Okay.
So now we are to the point where we need nominations for president, vice president.
I would like to nominate Pete Robinson for president and Jeff Boland for vice president.
And then I second the motion.
Second nomination and a second discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Have it. Congratulations, Pete, Jeff.
Was that 7 hours? Or was that-
Yeah. We can now.
You want to run from there, Pete? Sure. You want to move this way? It's up to you.
This is good.
Good.
So we're moving on to 7.2, the resolution to set regular meeting dates.
Yes. So on our resolution to set regular meeting dates, no different than election of school board officers. we have to set our regular meeting dates either this month, or we would set them, we would say when we're going to set those. And so as we did with the officers, we had done that in July. And so we had marked the established day of the week, month, time, and location for regular Board of Education meetings and any alternative meetings to be held during the 2022-2023 school year at its July 11th, 2022 board meeting. If we would like to reset those with a different time, we can discuss that now. One of the changes that we made last July was to move them to 6 o'clock instead of 7. So this was what we've done in the past, but obviously we can change that at any time here. We have to make an action on this in January. So
I make a motion to approve as written and described by Mr. Wessel.
Second.
Any discussion?
Can you explain that?
by statute, we have to set our school Board of Education times either at this meeting or we have to say when we're going to do that. And so from the resolution, we chose to mark that we would do that at our July 11th meeting. And so at that point in time, we would be able to set a different time and date. Right now, we are set to be the second Monday at 6 p.m. We had adopted that last July in those times we were going to do.
So we're shifting it. That's what.
No, at this point in time, you'll set the times in July for the next school year's Board of Education.
Oh, so 6 months from now.
Yes, we'll readdress this in July.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so,
Yeah, we have to, by statute, we have to either do it now or say when we're gonna do it.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 7-0.
Moving on to 7.3, the appointment of 2021-22 negotiations committee.
We have our negotiations last year. Michelle, the member that is still here that served, and John, thanks for being here, John, and Beth Stevenson. And so last year was the first year we had 3 members. We couldn't have 4 because then we'd have a board meeting, but we could have up to 3 members serve on negotiations. Time commitment there. Traditionally, we've had a meeting, lasts about 3 hours, and we negotiate. We do have some training that you have to go through. The KSB provides for us. And so that's kind of the time commitment, depending on how that all goes. There'd be some, for our new members, there'd be obviously some additional training and learning that we might want to meet additional time on that. So.
Do you have any volunteers to be on the negotiations committee? Anyone else? Michelle, would you like to do it again? Give us a little continuity. Okay, but you say you would like to do it if no one else wants to do it, or? Okay.
You can have up to 3.
We can have up to 3.
I'm willing to do it or not do it. It's up to you.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we select our negotiations committee. I nominate Michelle. I nominate Mary, and you guys want to?
Carla, go ahead.
Okay, Carla, I'd like, and Carla. So those 3 to be on our negotiations committee.
Sure.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Perfect. Thank you. The 2022-2023 calendar, 7.4.
We put forth our 2022-2023 draft calendar for you. Just a little background on calendar committee. That is something that is in the negotiated agreement about who serves on that committee. We have a member of our licensed staff from every building that serves on the calendar committee. We meet once, we've met once, and then we had 4 calendars that we ended up looking at. And then we sent out our top 2 calendars and we asked for a vote from our buildings in order to bring this to you. By our negotiated agreement, we do not, there's no board member that serves on that committee. You are the final approval of that calendar. So if for whatever reason, if there are things that you would like us to relook at, we would have to go and reopen up the calendar committee in order to do that. This is the process that we email out to all staff members in order to do that, in order to get feedback. And then those calendar committee members do a nice job of representing their building. So any questions about our school calendar? Carla?
At this point in time, can we discuss that or?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, I believe that I move not to accept it as is. I believe that there are some concerns that I would like to bring up, whether I give them to you to go to your board.
Yeah, I mean, that ultimately
I wasn't sure if that were for executive session or for.
no, we would do this out in open session.
Okay.
So you would bring those to me.
Okay.
If we need to reconvene our calendar committee, we can do that. We would take those concerns back to that committee because we do have a committee that ends up bringing that to you. So, okay.
So I think what she's doing is she's making a motion to not accept the calendar and also as is, and then to submit suggested changes to the calendar committee.
Yeah, we need to have that conversation out here. And if we're wanting to do that tonight, we need to do that tonight so we can go back and be able to bring this back to you in February.
We still need a motion though, right?
She motioned, you need a second.
I'll second that motion.
Any more discussion before we make them approve the motion? Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
We're approving the motion to table the calendar to provide further feedback.
To deny this one
Gotcha.
and then
I-
suggestion.
Twice on
Okay.
them? Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You're opposed? Okay, so we got 5-2. Okay, discussion. We were gonna go ahead and open it up so that we can find out what changes we need to make to the calendar.
I believe that. I know that we have a lot of, I'll just be simple with it. The calendar, it's a fine calendar. It's very similar to past years, but I do think that it's very seldom that the students are fully in class Monday through Friday of 2 consecutive weeks before we have, well, as you can see, we have a day off for the students. I'm just concerned with the continuity and the disruption of learning and the follow through. I'm not just adamant about it. I believe that there's just discussion that needs to be looked at further. I also see in November, the 20th and 22nd, that's Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving. Essentially, we have a fall break that is a Monday through Friday. As well, we have a March spring break, which is a Monday through Friday, and then a teacher's work day or no school for students on the 10th before. And then the 2 solid weeks in December. The questions that come to mind is just teaching and learning continuity and just keeping the kids focused. And this, I know that the committee, you are the experts. So, and this really isn't for discussion right now, other than I'm just bringing these up. Is that
Sure.
correct? Okay.
Yes, and I can address some of those concerns because some of them are negotiated.
Okay.
For example, the work days on March 10th and the work day on October 12th, right before, those are negotiated work days that we have to have at a certain time in the school year. And so through our negotiated agreement, those are work days that we have to provide from the negotiations committee. Likewise, on our August, another example of that is at the beginning of the year, we have 2 work days for teachers at the beginning of the year that we provide. We also have a minimum number of professional development days that we provide for teachers. No different than we have a 186-day contract for existing teachers and a 188-day contract for new teachers to the district. They have 2 additional new teacher days that they have to be provided. Some of the things that are variable would be things in some of the discussion through our calendar committee. And one of the calendars that we did look at did have those days before Thanksgiving, the 21st and 22nd were school days. And that's one of the calendars that we looked at. Additionally, the Christmas time calendar at the 19th and 20th are also days, and 21st are days that could be options for us in order to provide. And then another one is spring break. We have traditionally had spring break in our school calendar, but that is obviously an option that is not a negotiated option. Those are all things that we could look at. A lot of the other days end up being national holidays for no school, student staff vacation, those type of things. There are a few of those. Little education here too for board members is on that day, October 14th, and the day after is a day that we provide for that additional time when we spend an evening time in parent-teacher conferences, and that's how that.
In February as well, right?
Yes, yeah, in October and in February. So just a little bit of information. So I guess my guidance to be able to take back that I need from you this evening are, and so Carla had mentioned that idea of continuity of time. So is that the feeling of most board members? Is that something I need some guidance from you in order to be able to take back to that committee in order to be able to bring something back that we can get approved, I guess would be my question. So what other types of information?
Other questions I may have. I know we have professional development classes, which are so important for the teachers and the teachers' workday. I don't diminish that as value, but we do have late start. Is the whole idea of late start, that's just at the high school? Is that correct? No,
we have a district-wide late start on Thursdays.
So what happens during late start?
That is the time that we have our professional learning communities that teachers are able to, during that Thursday. So that's on top of any professional development that we have on those days.
So that's kind of local per site for each.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And then you have the big once over the world.
Yes.
Professional development. Now, what about final exams? Final exams are, like, if I look at the schedule, I've got November 21st through 25th out for Thanksgiving was on the 24th. And so then we're going to come back to school. The kids will come full up the 28th, students and staff. And then we actually have 3 weeks in a row. That's maybe the only place we have 3 solid weeks. But when are finals? I assume they're the week of, according to this schedule, the week of the 12th, December 12th through 16th.
That would finals at the high school.
Yes.
The finals at the high school would be the last 3 days of the semester. We have the 14th and 15th, and then the 16th is a makeup finals day that the high school has been able to do for that. That's a change that was made quite a few years ago in order to provide teachers the opportunity and students the opportunity that missed on those final days or that had additional work that they needed to be able to make up on that 16th. The other thing that did provide is it provided a long time ago, we did those on the workday. And so students didn't make up their finals until after the winter break. So that is a change that we had made in a final schedule at the high school. The high school is the only one that ends up with a true final schedule on those days.
What is the requirement in the state of Kansas? How many student days do we have to have?
We have, Danya, what's the number 1,116
So
hours.
dividing that, what would it be pretty much, what formula we use? Because we have 168 days.
We have
Does that
180.
Capture all of that?
Yes,
Because that says student days right there. I'm
Yes.
assuming that encompasses those hours that we're talking about.
yes, we have 168 student days.
Okay,
And we have additional days for things like snow or weather. We have more hours than we need in a school year. And that is based on the minimum number of hours in each of our buildings separately. So you actually look at we can send the spreadsheet of how that's all figured to you. But yes, we have 168 student days. And then I don't remember how many hours we have in a day.
6.58.
About 6.58 hours.
so is 168 days with 6.58 hours per day, is that a minimum state requirement, or is it the
We-
maximum, or kind of in the middle?
There is no maximum.
Okay.
There is a minimum,
What is
the
the minimum?
1,168 hours,
Which is
or 1116 hours.
So we're at minimum.
You're
No.
slightly, so you actually have more hours than you need currently at the current calendars, okay? The reason you have more hours than you need is for days when you need to call a snow day or something like that, then you're not making it up on the backside. If you burn too many of your days, then you're making it up on the backside. You also have in there days where they have PD, which counts as half day, or if they have student contact days, it counts as part of your hours. The state has like a formula that counts part of your hours if you have like PD as a contact, but only half of a contact day. So then it counts towards your hours and you move forward. Right now, you're sitting over what you're required, which leaves you a little leniency if you have snow days, or if you have catastrophes, or if you have air conditioners go out or power go out, that you're not making it up on the end of the school year where students might be graduating or looking into finals and stuff like that.
We can send that spreadsheet out to everyone. and be
So
able to do that.
primarily minus the disruption of learning throughout with the different days.
Do you have a suggestion?
And
Say I need,
I can give you-
what days are you looking, what days, if you're looking at the days that Dan put that are contracted days, and then he looked at days that are negotiated on the calendar days, and then holidays, would it be beneficial if he sent out a calendar that was marked as negotiated days that are in their contract that we have to do? Days that we've already marked off for like parent-teacher conferences and stuff like that, holidays, and then give you the options of days that you have, like to slice down on your continuity disruption.
Or just move around.
I think,
Because-
but what I'm saying,
Right.
what I'm saying is, on our calendar, would it be easier if he sent you so that you could see the non-negotiable days?
Sure, yes.
And then the
Say yes.
negotiable days is what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So then that way you can look at it and you can make a suggestion on days that you feel of the negotiable, non-contracted, required days that you would like to move or cut down on.
What I'm trying to understand is in November, starting with the 21st and the 22nd, those were 2 extra days that were given off due to mental stress and for COVID reasons. So now we take those 2 days out of there. Where are we making those up at? Or are we not making them up and just going to have our 168 days with just barely over the minimum of 6.58?
well, this year we did give those and they didn't cost us any of our contract days. So in essence, your teachers this year worked 184 contract days. instead of 186. When we looked at the calendar for this year, those days ended up going, notice that we come back August 4th with new teachers, 4th and 5th. And so all of that 21st and 22nd was actually a lengthy conversation. And when we did that, we actually started school a day earlier. So we started the 12th instead of the 15th. And then we also have a day over here on the 4th is the first day of the semester. And we had actually, we had moved that day to a day off there in November as November 21 and 22. So no, we have a contract with our teachers to work 186 days for teachers that are still in the district. We have 188 contract days for new teachers. If you count all of the days that we're in session, and that's by the negotiated agreement, we have 186 contract days. So if we gave the 21st and 22nd and we made those school days, we would possibly not start school until the 16th, let's say. And this is all conversation with our calendar committee. Or let's say we got rid of spring break. We wipe out spring break. We would still have to have that work day by the negotiation, by the negotiated agreement. And if you need to reference back to that, that is in our end of the week, the last couple of weeks, I've made sure to put that in there for us. But that day, that 10th, is a day that we are negotiated at the end of the grading period. The grading period happens to be right there. And we have a work day for that then. But let's say we didn't have the 13th through the 17th. We wouldn't go to school 191 contract days if that's what we choose to do. We would move those 5 days somewhere else. We could get out of school on the 19th or the 18th instead of the 26th. That's kind of how that conversation goes. So, for example, let's say if the guidance from the board is that we want more continuity and minimize those breaks. 21st and 22nd could be days that we would take off the front end of school. Same thing with the December time, 19th and 20th. So
if you look at December, well, and you get January up there, please, to make that easy.
Good.
So basically, you're gonna leave school on the 16th and go home. And then starting on the 17th, it's a Saturday. We had 19 days in a row. I mean, we just did that. 19 days in a row that students were not in school. Is that correct? Nearly 20 days. It's because the teachers came back for their professional development or the work day, it appears to me. But we didn't start school until Thursday.
correct.
I just feel like it just loses a little bit of momentum.
Okay.
So that's my feedback to you.
Any other conversation? I mean, Carla's one of the 7. We need to make sure that we can get 4 of the 7. And what other feedback, Jeff?
That's my main thing too, Dan, is the Thanksgiving week. We're essentially going to go from a 5-day break to a 9-day break. And I know especially with the younger kids, I mean, even I got middle schoolers, and I know going from a 5 to a 9-day break, you're losing more on focus time. And by the time you get back to school in December, then you're going back on break again. I think if we had that shorter Thanksgiving break, it would make everything better up to Christmas, and then let them have the long break at Christmas. But the Thanksgiving week's the only problem I really see.
Okay.
I kind of feel the same about the Thanksgiving. I think that was the difference between the 2 calendars originally. Is that correct?
That was yes, one of them. We also had a calendar that included the winter break to be shorter, which is what we had this year.
Oh, that was shorter on
Yeah.
the one.
Yeah,
that
we had
the
one. Yeah.
Short Thanksgiving. Right?
Yeah.
And looking at February, for example, the continuity again, you have that's parent teacher conferences. I get that. You have parent teacher conferences. They go to school on 15th, right? And parent teacher are from 4 to 8 p.m. And then the 16th, it's till 3 o'clock. Those parent teacher conferences, and then teacher and student holiday. And then you do have President's Day, or I don't know if they want that But you do have that holiday. That shortens 2 weeks that are affected by that. So if you have like a Monday, Wednesday program, they usually do Tuesday, Thursday, then you do, oh gosh, what day are we on? When we come back, that's the feedback that I just provide.
So on that one, on the 20th, sorry, I'm going to specifics, but I have to be able to take specifics back.
Sure.
So in your world, would we go to school on February 20th?
And 20th, President's Day, yeah, it's sadly, it's one of those, B-side holidays that we're getting almost like Columbus Day's like nowhere to be seen. So we don't do Columbus Day anymore.
That's actually one that we did take off this year. Because one of the things that we've traditionally done, and we can definitely look at all of those, is things that are national holidays, we've tried to keep
Sure.
for those in our community, especially because most of our military staff, we talk about that a lot, do have that day off also, so.
I think it would be easier and clearer for everyone if we made a motion to highlight our current calendar that we have as the non-negotiable days and then the negotiable days, and then take it to your staff and your committees and see which days they feel like they could lose. And then at that point, you could talk about starting school later or earlier release on school if you're talking about continuity, because if they're giving up days and they're conjoining their weeks so that they have less breaks, your hours increase. So then you can either start later or end earlier. I think as it's a negotiating and taking to your teachers and their groups, I would start with the highlighted of non-negotiables, put the negotiables in there. As a board, maybe we make a recommendation of how many days we look to cut out of that calendar and continuity. If we give specific dates, it might help him or the calendar committee in making decisions as a collective group for the staff. And then with that, we should make a recommendation as a board, whether we would like to end school earlier or start school later, which one we recommend. And then have Dan as our representative, take it back to the teachers and the staff and have them bring back. I would recommend 2 calendar options so that way we can look at it as this is their first vote and this is their second vote. And then as a board, we make a decision next month. That would be my motion.
It's very good.
Because some of these dates and some of these things, the teachers actually brought to us. Some of these the dates and things that were either in our office calendar were brought to us by the teachers.
Oh, and you said, yeah, okay.
So these are things that they brought to us. as well.
Okay.
So the breaks and the additional days off and some of the things are things that they've asked for as well.
Dan, have we given you enough information so that you can go back to your committee and provide us 2 calendar options at the next board meeting?
I believe so.
Kind of have a gist of what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you need a motion for that? Or
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Once again, I don't want it to be said that I don't like holidays. I get that, but it's the continuity, because right now I look on the calendar and it's only from November 28th through 16 December that we have 3 full Monday through Friday weeks in a row. And now you're telling me and reminding me that the finals are only on the 14th and 15th, and then a makeup with December 16th. So really for high school, you have 2.5 weeks. It's the max that we have in a row without some sort of anomaly of a date that's justified, but just move it around so we have continuity. And so I'll finish.
When I would recommend when you bring the calendar back, Dan,
Mhm.
instead of like the finished polished version that you have right now, I would highlight it with a graph off to the side of non-negotiable days, negotiable days on your 2. So then that way the board can look at it and then propose start date and proposed end date.
One of the things that our calendar committee is tasked with doing is bringing one to you by our negotiations piece. And so that's something that we do have to adhere to as a part of that, just so we all are on the same page on that. The calendar committee will bring one to you that you then either approve or disapprove. And that's kind of, and if we have to do it months at a time, we can do that. But that is part of that process with the negotiations piece. So.
This is a great example of us working together to make sure that we're giving our kids the best education possible. I think it's a win-win for everybody. Thank you for the great discussion, and I think Dan will come back with a great product for us. So, we're going to move on to 7.5 COVID leave.
This was asked to put on. We did have an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding with the teachers this year on our COVID leave. And so we're bound by that. But Amy, you had asked for this to be on the agenda, so we put it on the agenda. You had some information that you wanted to additionally add, I believe.
Well, since you're bound by that, so is that, we can't amend that right now?
No,
have
we
to go
could
back to that?
make it less restrictive. We
Okay.
couldn't make it more restrictive. So
Okay, well, I moved to amend it to include the unvaccinated staff also with the new availability of the testing and methods. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the contact tracing and things like that. I think that it should include both and not just the vaccinated employees. But I think if we're gonna have a policy, I think it should include all.
I'll second the motion. Do we have any discussion?
My main question is do we pay, or does the federal government reimburse leave anymore?
we can use our ESSER dollars in order to do that. It is not the case that we've ever gotten reimbursed per se. We have had those ESSER dollars in order to that. So we could use our ESSER $3 that we have if we have extended leave. The only issue that we end up having, and you've heard about that a lot, is just number of staff members in order to provide school. I think that's the only issue.
The next question I have is, if you did away with COVID leave and went straight to sick time and then allowed extenuating circumstances to be pulled out of the bank, it would essentially just make COVID leave regular sick leave, correct?
Yes, but that memorandum of understanding that we approved, I believe it was in September, is through at least the end of this school year. So that would be the only thing that we wouldn't be able to do this year.
Do we have any other discussion?
Was there a cap on those days now? What was the policy, the amount of time?
I believe it's 10 days.
10 days.
Are they? That's just straight 10 days out of our monies? It doesn't come out of their sick time at all?
Correct. And that's how we, in essence, that was the same that we had last year, that the federal government had mandated, and we extended that this year, 10 additional days that no, they do not have to take off of their leave time.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So how many people have actually taken advantage of the COVID leave?
We don't
Ballpark,
have a number, but not as much as last year.
not as much as last year.
Last year, it was considerable tracking that we were doing.
Even tougher question, how many people would have applied for COVID leave if they had had the option without the immunization? Any idea?
That it wasn't an option, so they wouldn't have.
With this amendment,
said that.
could we grandfather them in to this so that the people that have already taken COVID leave, would they be able to use it? It's ESSER dollars, it's for COVID funding, right?
Yes. The only issue I would have is how we would know that. I mean, they can apply for it.
How do they apply for it now?
When they have a leave, they mark off if it's
That, and we wait for the health department to send us their records.
that they were positive.
One more thing, after the 10 days, we also offer half days after if they use more. So they also can use after 10, they get time off, half the time off. So not a full day, half day.
So if you're out 12 days, you get 10 full days, and then it would count a half a day. You would lose a day of sick, and we would pay for a day off of the COVID piece.
And this has been for the vaccinated only.
By the MOU, it's the vaccinated only, yes.
Okay.
And if you want to grandfather that in, we would just have to ask if they were off, they'd have to produce that. In my world, they would need to produce that document that they were,
They had
that
positive COVID.
they were positive COVID. Yeah.
Is it right now you have to be positive, or is it just for a quarantine issued by the health department?
It would be either one.
Because if we have the testing strategy in place now,
Mhm.
they will be able to test to still come to work
Yeah.
technically. So
When that gets fully implemented, it's not fully implemented right now, but as soon as we do, yes, we'd be able to do that. Now, the big thing on that, Jeff, would be is if we're going to go back and grandfather people in, we would need those quarantine orders that they would need to be able to produce in my eyes. So,
well, since it's already, you said we can't make it any more stringent, so we couldn't change it to make it, you had to be positive case to get it now.
no,
Okay. That was my question. If we had people to make it positive only,
no.
we go forward.
Because there's also pieces in that MOU that include if you're having to take care of a positive. Yeah.
So when we make the motion, Amy's motion was to amend the policy to include unvaccinated.
Yep.
And then if we wanted to include the piece about, I guess we have to approve that as it is, right? Because that's the motion that's up now. So we'd have to approve that. But if we wanted to, we did have a second, I seconded it. But if we wanted to not approve that motion, but modify that motion in a second motion
Mhm.
to include all COVID.
She can withdraw her motion and make a new motion. And then that way she can modify it without having a motion and then another motion.
I just want to make sure that we don't have to do something with this motion.
Current CDC is 5 days and then 5 days mask, correct?
Yes.
So why would we make it 10?
That's the current policy, right?
Yeah.
My question is if it's 5 now and 5 masks coming back, why would we make it 10?
Is that 5 for vaccinated or 5 for
I think it's-
unvaccinated?
CDC is 5.
For anyone?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's the new guidance that just came out. This is all changing probably as we speak. So
If we're looking at following the guidance of it, if it's 5 days off and we're footing the bill for it, let's go 5 days and then 5 days back mask and not spend extra 5 days worth of the district's money.
I think we would have to go back. That MOU includes 10 days. So we couldn't change the amount of days per se.
We could do that
You
for the
can,
next,
yes,
for next year, but not this year because we've already approved it.
yes.
Amy, you want to modify your motion?
So what do we want to change the end of it to, just to?
We may not want to change it at all.
grandfather it, or-
I asked the question to Dan, if we wanted to include the folks that had COVID.
Oh, previously. Okay, yes, I could
were
modify that. That's
unvaccinated.
possible, yeah.
So you want to,
Yes,
So you're withdrawing your original
I
motion.
withdraw my original motion and I
Making a new-
move to make a new motion to extend this to the unvaccinated. And then if possible, with proof of their positive or their quarantine orders to retroactive, give that back to those employees that were forced to use their own leave. Does that cover it?
I think
Yes.
that covers it perfectly.
Okay, I just wanted to, the same.
Now, does LEA have a say in this MOU? On our.
As long, in my eyes, as long as we are not being less restrictive and it's not,
Okay,
as long as we're doing that,
yeah.
we can give more benefits than we have. I mean, I would assume that conversation, I mean, sure, they could, I don't know what would be a grievable action in that when you aren't taking away someone's living. So
Okay,
that's
good.
my opinion. Of
Motion.
I have a
always,
motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 7-0. Another great work there. We're moving on to 7.6, COVID masking, testing and tracing.
just a quick update, as Jeff mentioned about the testing, we're still waiting on some information from KDHE. We're still planning on going forward with that, assuming that is still the board's direction. The masking, we're at optional masking, and I had sent that information to all of you, those that I have received. And then our contact tracing, and I think that's a big part. I did put in front of you something that was shared with me about COVID-19 contact tracing consent form that I'd like you to look at. A couple of the things that we as a school district that have changed since we have been contact tracing is that has been taken away from our Leavenworth County Health Department, and it is going back to KDHE in order to do that contact tracing. So what that looks like for us, I don't know, because when you send in your close contacts or when they do the contact tracing at KDHE, none of us really know what that's going to look like. So I think that is of a concern of all of our county superintendents when we've been able to talk about that. If we can't do that locally, how is the state going to do contact tracing for us? So one of the things that there is some issues and some conversation about privacy and the contact tracing, and this consent form in front of you is something that we can use if the board would like us to, in order to provide parents with an option to opt out of contact tracing. Now, in my eyes, that if we do that, and we're going to opt out of the contact tracing piece, in essence, you will have more folks that are possibly positive in your schools. And so if I'm going to opt out, I'm not sure why we would do contact tracing at all. And that's just my opinion. But that is also a conversation with the board. But that's Dan's half cent on a 2-cent question. Because at that point in time, if we're going to allow people to opt out, then all of a sudden that's one more step that our nurse gets to take a look and say that. And if that is the case at that point in time, I'm not 100% sure if the idea behind contact tracing is to keep us safer. I'm not sure that if we accept that, that's something that we should be doing. So it's one of those things. The masking piece, like I said, we're optional at this point in time. Just a discussion from the board on what are your feelings on that, especially as our positivity rates have gone up in our community. Is it the case that we would look at ever putting a mask on someone would be my question to you. We had 900 cases in Leavenworth County from last week, positive cases, community positivity rate of about 23%. And so the other thing is that we have about 75 positive cases right now in our school that we know about. Some schools have set a positivity rate inside of the school. I believe Tonganoxie is at 4%. And then they go to a mask. So all conversations, especially with the new board, I've said a lot, and now it's time for me to be quiet and allow you to talk as to guidance for us as the school district.
So you said that we have 75 students here in the Lansing School District that are now at this point positive with COVID?
Yes, that's a number that my nurse gave me today.
And okay, so then what's that our percentage out of our 2,600 and some?
It was about 2.8% across the district. And in each school, I didn't ask her for that. It was
that's fine.
Conversation
Okay.
today.
So about 2 point what?
It was about 2.89%.
Okay.
And how many of those students are hospitalized? Any idea?
I don't know, Pete.
Okay.
Do you have a current number on faculty or staff that are positive?
I do not.
So do you need a motion, or are we just doing?
Just a discussion, and if there's anything that we want to change, especially with the new Board of Education, a big question for me is before we fully implement the test to stay, is that something that we'd like to continue to do? It does give an option around quarantine, but they've also lowered the quarantine days from 5 to or from 7 and 10 to 5, and then 5 with a mask. That is a question that that I know has come up in conversation. You know, is that something you'd like to see us continue? I know that there are some questions about the test to stay piece and just testing in general. And so just a conversation piece. I just want to make sure that we're in the same direction that we need to be before our time, staff time is addressed. So
The students came back to school on Thursday,
mhm,
and so today is Monday.
Monday.
So 75 Lansing students have been identified as positive since then.
That are currently missing school for being positive.
Now, some of that is just voice, like, hey,
Yes,
Jim's not coming to school because he
right.
got a positive test. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. It's nothing that we tested.
No,
Found.
no,
Okay.
no. And it would never be that we did not choose that testing option. There are testing options there. We would only test those that had to quarantine.
Okay.
So that,
Our current policy right now is the test to stay. So if they're identified as a close contact, like right now, if I'm positive and Dan's next to me and Michelle, and we're students, they would most likely have to test to stay in school. So in the morning they would, or afternoon, they would get tested so that they could stay in school so that they weren't positive. That's it. That's the current where we're at.
and one of the pieces there too is it does end up being a vaccinated versus an unvaccinated question, which is something that Ms. Workman didn't mention. Because if you are vaccinated and not showing any symptoms, you don't have to be tested. So that could be a concern. Also.
Well, and my concern about that is even though we are double vaxxed and boosted, we are having students, or not students so much, but people that are coming down with COVID once again.
Sure.
So I guess I just don't feel like it should be that the vaccinated are allowed to come back without a mask, but those that are not do have to come back with a mask. Is that what we're saying?
My understanding is the CDC guidance is 5 days of quarantine and then 5 days of mask.
I don't think the mask is optional if you're in close contact, whether you're vaccinated or not. I think it's 5 days and 5 days. I don't believe they, personally not 100% sure, but I don't believe they make a decision whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated on whether you're in a mask for 5 days afterwards. I think you just don't have to get tested unless you're showing symptoms if you're vaccinated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, that makes sense. But if you're vaccinated and you're coming down with COVID again, and then they do not have to come back to school with the mask. Is that correct? Or they do. I want to, okay, they do.
So if you're a close contact, if you're vaccinated, you just don't have to test to stay. You're almost like you're out and you're on your honor system, basically. If you show symptoms, then you have to test and then you're from there. If you're a close contact, either way, you're wearing a mask for your 5 day period afterwards. Does that make sense? So
makes
5 days
sense.
off, 5 days mask. If you're vaccinated, I believe you're coming back to school and you're in a mask for that 10-day period. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
It'd be 5 days after.
Yeah, 5 days after.
On the positive piece. The
Yeah.
positive piece is the key there.
And that policy is in place right now. So if you want to maintain that policy, there's no action that's required by.
Correct.
Dan, have you heard anything from the state on timeframe?
I would guess we would be within the next 10 days to 2 weeks, that we'd be up and running on the testing piece.
Okay.
So I have a question on the contact tracing.
Mhm.
The other part of the recommendations from the KDHE is that we should have, in my opinion, as a layman reading this, we should have been having the permission all along for the contact tracing. So if we move to add this consent form,
Yes.
and Jeff's parents do not consent to him being contact traced, right?
Mhm.
And I do. and we're both positive. So then are we still going to provide that testing for those kids, those people that do give that permission for the contact tracing? Because we wouldn't need to test Jeff if his parents aren't giving permission.
If on the contact, if they don't provide us with consent, in my eyes, we wouldn't test him.
Yeah, there's no point. But are we still going to keep the program for the people that do, I guess is what I'm.
That's my question to you.
Yeah, me too, been to the board, so. Because I move to approve if we want to do that first, the contact tracing. I think that's important either way, just because the statutes say that we need that permission from either an adult or a child, whoever's being tested, to do that. And then I guess we could, if that's seconded and voted to approve on, then I guess we can decide on the testing. How's that sound?
The other piece of the contact tracing for me is that there are certain functions that are school functions. When I'm told by my attorney and told by the health department that I'm going to provide that information, I'll provide that information. But when it falls on me, I don't have the control, and I don't have it's not my job in order to contact trace and to quarantine. I don't have the power of quarantine at that point in time. I think that's an important part. The exclusion of from school for health reasons. We do that when they have a fever. We do have certain pieces that when someone has been positive for the flu, that we exclude from school with that. But as for that quarantine when they are not sick, that's not my role as a school. That's someone else's role in our community. So.
Can I just get a little clarification on the?
Sure.
The contact tracing sheet that Amy just made a motion for. If the parent says that they don't want their child to be tested, they don't want to have contact tracing, what happens to that student? Does he stay in school? Is he now removed from school?
In my eyes, he would stay in school because at that point in time, I can't share that information, and I don't exclude. That's the important part for that. So in my eyes, that's not my role. And I can't share that information. That will be KDHE's role. So in essence, if they would come back and say that you were a close contact, let's say that I send in Pete as a positive, and for whatever reason, KDHE sends back to us and says that Dan, because I sat next to Dan, is excluded, then I think that I would have to honor that. However, it's not the case, especially if they didn't consent to that I wouldn't send that information instead.
Okay.
So.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Can we clarify the motion?
The motion is to, I believe.
Accept the
Accept
motion for
the contact
tracing.
tracing consent form.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Looks like it was 6-1.
Aaron.
And I guess we're on to 7.7. We're going.
Is there anything additional? I mean, that was part. Is there any additional masking and or testing information that the board needs to discuss? I guess that'd be my only question.
I guess that would be with the testing, what we're gonna do with the kids that do consent. If we're gonna go ahead with that testing program, if the tests do eventually come in.
Correct.
So that would just be, I guess we should probably clarify that, yes or no,
I don't need a motion per se. I just
or talk about
make
it.
Because
sure.
we
that-
already have that. That's already in place.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so
approved it.
we'll
but-
just keep that as is.
Okay.
And I do want to make sure that all this information is kept very personal. I want to make sure that any of our administration, our staff is making sure that we're not questioning any students if they're vaxxed or unvaccinated. any of their personal medical history. So I want to make sure that in our classrooms that we are not discussing this. I want to make sure that we make our staff aware that is not to be discussed, whether a student is vaccinated or unvaccinated, and whether they signed, their parents signed a consent form or not.
Sure.
If we can put a memo out.
Yes, those are, and we can send out a reminder about all of the right to privacy pieces.
Yeah, I think we should.
Sure.
During this pandemic, that all medical records be kept between the school and the student be kept, make sure that it's kept in line private.
We want to have, what's the penalty if they were to do something, say something that they shouldn't?
I mean, those all end up being things like reprimands that we would do and different pieces. So, I mean, that's all, I mean, we have HIPAA, we have FERPA conversations all the time through schools. So.
Yes, I just want to make sure that, we don't find ourselves with any legality problems over the HIPAA matter.
Can definitely send out that reminder. Yep.
So good.
I'm good.
Okay, we're moving on to 7.7 board work sessions.
One of the things that we did pre-COVID that was very well received, I believe, by new board members is, and old board members. Not that you guys are old, but you understand experience. How about that? Experienced board members is we had some work sessions. And what a work session is it's a deeper dive into information that we can take one topic and really dive down deep. Most of our meeting here is conversation about, approval and looking for that. And so I pulled these up. These are some ideas. And if we have additional things that we want, this is also an opportunity for us to take, like I said, a deeper dive in, or if there's special things that we want to talk about and have the experts here in the district or an outside expert come in and talk about them, really have an opportunity. The first one is the month of January. And what I'm looking for is an approval of a list or a possible list, especially early on, and then what day we would like to do that. We used to do it the last Monday of the month and set a time. We've done that at different ways. We've had dinner and had that conversation through those opportunities. The reason you don't see one in May is an extremely busy time, especially at the end of the school year for most of your administration. And then June, July, and August, your administrative contracts, except for district office, are 10.5-month contracts. And so they're off in June and July. And so that's why we don't have June and July. August is a startup. So we come back in September, October. November, December ends up being very busy with holiday season. So we can always add those if we would like to. These are the conversations, board goals. I think it'd be an excellent opportunity either for Miles and myself to lead that along the idea also of a portrait of a graduate and what those goals are looking at academically, and also board goals of other goals that we would like to go through. And we could lead that in the month of January here at the end of the month. February is a budget conversation. A big conversation that we need to have is for, especially with the new board members, is how is that money generated, funds and priorities that we currently have, and things for you to help guide us in that process for next year. Month of March is, I would like someone to come in from the outside to explain to all of us special education funding from the state of Kansas and kind of where we're at. I know that was a large topic last year. April is in preparation. Handbooks are a large part of our policy document that do get approved by you. Last year, we aligned our handbooks in order to streamline those for parents. But I think it would be a good opportunity for us to send those out to you well in advance of that April. And no different than we did with the calendar tonight, is for you to give guidance on to us, so it's not a first read for you. I know that that's a big conversation and something that we've really worked hard to do. When we come back from school and we wait until the month of September to do this, because there is no guarantee that you get assessment scores until at least the beginning of the school year. That's happened at different times, but we would take you through all of those different assessment scores, including the Fast Bridge Screener, the ACT, AP scores, state assessments, and anything else that you wanted to talk about in that assessment scores and the way we assess students. And then the month of October is a board self-evaluation after the regular board meeting. That's the way we did it 2 years ago, is we had the board needs to go through a self-evaluation process. Just, how we're doing on those board goals that we would set in order for us to be able to be prepared for the next January. And that was something that was also a part of our board life cycle. So, and if there's anything else that you'd like to remove or replace, we're more than willing and able to look at those.
What was January?
What
The
do you
topic
think, Andrew?
in January.
January is the board goals and
Portrait of a
portrait of a graduate.
On the SPED in March, I know we mentioned we were going to try to work in like a SPED briefing, but it was too
Mhm.
large to kind of fit in. But I know you mentioned bringing in someone from the outside to talk
Talk
about
about funding.
So what about I don't know, how would we work that with could we work in the overview at the same time? Is that too much?
That would be a lot. And
Or is it
if we
different
wanted an
time that we do
overview, I
that?
think we would, in my eyes, we would want to do that sooner before the
Yeah,
SPED
me too.
piece.
I don't know how we
So,
work that in.
It'd just be another evening so that
Okay.
we could have,
I think that's important. I just don't know what would work best. And that is such a large
mhm.
topic.
The strategic plan for the district.
In my eyes, Carla, that would be something we would set as a board goal in order to go through that process. And that is also part of the portrait of a graduate, would be a part of that strategic planning.
So this month.
But yes, but and you had emailed me about that. I think it's really important that we continue that conversation as a board, and what are the goals that you would like to see myself and my staff really focus on. And if we're going to take that time, energy, and effort in order to do that, I want that to be a board goal in order to go through the entire strategic planning process.
Right.
And set that as a board goal in January and set an end time for that. So we can make sure that we go through that entire process, like you said, to get outside, community involvement in that process.
Right,
So,
right, because, I picture people like sitting around whiteboards,
mhm.
brainstorming, kind of identity, and definitely engaging the site councils.
Sure. And like I said, I think that would be in my eyes, that was something that you would set as a board goal in order for us to accomplish that by the end of the school year and the next calendar year. I have some other ideas about that when we talk about those board goals,
Okay.
about where that really fits as a whole. So I think that goes into one of, like I said, one of our board goals and where that really fits. So.
October 31st happens to be the last Monday in October. That's also kind of a big night for the kids.
Yeah.
Do we want to adjust that one date? I think the rest of them I checked quickly and it looked like they would all be, if we decided to do the last Monday of the month, I think it'd be acceptable. We could check with everybody, obviously, but
Sure.
the only one I see a hiccup with is October 31st. Unless you guys want to meet on October 31st.
We could hand out candy here.
Yeah, there you
Why
go.
don't we do the 24th instead? I don't know if we need to put that in writing yet. Do the Monday before.
I would say the last Monday and then just say October 24th for that board self-evaluation.
It's not the second.
It's the
Say that again.
last Monday of the month for the
Oh.
for the meetings, for the board meetings. Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think it'd be better to change it.
In May,
I'd like
is
to
that
make a
fall?
motion that we approve board work sessions for January, which will include board goals and the portrait of a graduate. January 31st, February 28th, budget funds priority, March 28th, special education fund, April 25th, handbooks, September 26th, state assessment, and October 24th, which will be the board self-evaluation. Need a second? I got a second from Aaron. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. That did not address Amy's conversation about special education in general. I think that we'll want to bring that back up as a topic. And maybe we can do that in February in between those two. So,
Okay.
good.
And for executive session.
Should we start with 30?
30?
Yeah.
We all set?
Yeah, read them all.
I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance and personnel changes pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under COMA. And the open meeting will resume in the board at 8:05. Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 7-0.
All right, I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance and personal changes pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under coma, and the open meeting will resume in the board at 8:35. All in favor?
I
All opposed? 7-0. I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance and personnel changes pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under COMA, and the open meeting will resume in the board at 8:45. All good? Aye. Aye.
Good evening, everybody. We are back from executive session. We'll make a couple motions. I move that we approve the following new hires: Reagan Arthod, Elizabeth Sasnet, Rebecca Bax, Bridget Rooney, Maria Harper, Annette Rodriguez, and Elmer Cologne. I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? 7-0. I move that we approve the following job transfers: Martina Crisp, Andrea Koya, and Heidi Sanford.
Second.
I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. 7-0. I move that we approve the following existing employees. I'm sorry, I move that we approve the following exiting employees: Ian Hodges, Jennifer Miller, and Michelle Watkins.
Second.
I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? 7-0. I move to approve the following admin contracts based on the previous board's intent from the December 13th, 2021 meeting. Dan Wessel, Ascendra Donald, Miles Azay, Rob McKim, Gary Mattingly, Sandy Van Sice, Nick Gray, Brooks Jenkins, Nick Flynn, and Jennifer Cole.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All approved? All all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that ends tonight's meeting. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 7-0.